Welcome to How We Get Through, the podcast where we share stories, mental health insights, and healing advice on life's everyday challenges. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder of the How We Get Through app. We are back with part 2 with Kristen Jacobsen, a licensed psychotherapist from Chicago. Get ready for a heart-to-heart about something we've all experienced, perfectionism. Join me and Kristen as we crack the code on this whole perfectionism thing through self-compassion. And no, it's not cheesy. It's necessary. And if you just did an eye roll, then this episode is for you. Take a listen. Welcome back. We are with licensed therapist Kristen Jacobsen, who specializes in anxiety and perfectionism and is licensed in 4 different states: Chicago, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida. If you missed the last episode, please go check it out. We talked to Kristen about her and her path and how she became a therapist. It's really good, so go ahead and check it out. And today she is back and we're going to get some tips on how to get through imposter syndrome. Welcome back, Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yes. So in case anybody doesn't know, you have a course on the How We Get Through app that is How We Get Through Imposter Syndrome. And since you specialize in anxiety and perfectionism, in the last episode, we talked a lot about how imposter syndrome can be kind of this development out of perfectionism. And so we would love for you to give us some a quick 3 tips on how to combat imposter syndrome. So take it away.
Yeah, so I'd say for starters, just start becoming aware of how you talk to yourself in your head, right? This is sometimes referred to as self-talk or negative self-talk. And I think a lot of times we aren't even aware of sort of that internal running dialogue that we have. And a lot of times it's very critical and it's very negative and it's stuff that we would never say to a friend or a loved one, but we tend to talk to ourselves that way. And so, just starting to become aware of that, I think is sort of a good step toward changing that.
I love that. And I tell, all my clients that is the first step, right? Is awareness, because how do you change something that you're not aware of?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So if this negative self-talk is so familiar and you don't see it as something that is harmful or can be hurting you, or you just play it off, right? There is no realization oh my gosh, this might be a problem, or maybe this isn't kind, or you mean there's another way to talk to myself, right?
Because it's so automatic and it's our default. So we're not, it just becomes so second nature that we don't think about it. It's just breathing or, other things that just kind of happen.
Exactly. The automatic thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No, I love that. Awesome. What else you got for us?
Second, I would say create a list of positive and encouraging statements. So this can take a few different forms. Some people do positive affirmations where they'll write I am statements about different characteristics or traits or qualities that they like about themselves. This is can be very hard to do for a lot of people, which I've found with my clients. Or with imposter syndrome specifically, it might be focused more on things that you sort of feel proud of and that you feel like you've done a good job with.
Yeah. I love that, because I think a lot of people will roll their eyes over affirmations.
Yeah.
Or
it sounds so cheesy.
It does. And it does sound cheesy, and it kind of is. And at the same time, it can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Just as how powerful our negative thoughts have been.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
right.
I almost think of it as balancing out the energy. If you're going to talk shit about yourself, right? Can there also be a world where you praise yourself? And what would that look like? That balance, right? Because I think, again, a lot of times people want to get rid of something or not do that anymore, which feels really unrealistic of you start there, right? So how do you want to grow from there? instead of start and finish there.
Listen,
That makes sense?
yeah, you often have to have a replacement, whether it's whether you're trying to kick a habit and like stop smoking or something, you kind of have to have a replacement behavior to do instead in order for it to be effective. And it's the same with our thoughts too. Like, all right, if you're gonna have an awareness of the negative thought and try to remove that, what's gonna take its place?
Yes, exactly. Just like instead of like, well, don't think that.
Right? Yeah, sure. That'd be
just
great.
Stop it. What every therapist wants to tell their clients, just stop it.
Just stop
it. Yeah, and it works. Magic wand.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Great.
I know. So it is like wanting to replace it. We need awareness around it first. We need to know what to replace it with, right? And I think like when you can write down some of the positive things that you have done, but also like being able to like tune your ear to other things that other people are saying about you, right? Because I think typically with someone who has perfectionism or imposter syndrome, they can maybe see like the glass half full because there's a without, right? There's still something that I'm missing, right? And so we can kind of have a lens where we're not really seeing the things that people are telling us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like you're doing a really great job at work, or thank you so much for being a great partner. I mean, we won't actually get those words from people, right? But there's little like body languages and words and things like that we kind of have to train ourselves to re-register.
Yeah. Right. Because we tend to discount those things. Again, just automatically, not like I'm, aware of the fact that I'm doing that, but it's like you said, we sort of have this lens or a filter that like pushes the positive out and kind of hones in on the negative. And so really just if someone gives you a compliment, to accept that, not to negate it in some way, and just say thank you. That I've worked with several clients on that. Just say thank you if someone gives you a compliment. You don't have to like make an excuse or anything. And so that's really
Yes, I love that. And what do you think is why do they automatically like disregard the positive?
Well, I think we all have to use sort of psychobabble, this schema, which is essentially just like an outline or framework in our minds, right? Of how we see ourselves, other people, the world. And so when we get information that doesn't fit with that, we repel it. And we do this in all facets of life, right? We can do this with politics. If we're, really kind of have a solid belief system, any information we get that doesn't fit into that, we're going to reject. And so we do the same thing, with if we have such a negative framework in our minds, we're going to reject the positives, or we're going to chalk it up to other factors like luck or, somebody else is actually accountable or responsible for that, like that wasn't me, not taking credit for it, things like that.
Or you have to say that to me because you're a paid therapist to tell me how special I am. That's what I get. That's what I get a lot.
Yeah.
Like, well, you have to say that. I was like, actually, I don't have to say it. I don't say anything, right?
Right.
But it is, I love that you mentioned that, because that kind of, again, goes with the idea, I think, going back in childhood of how that schema is developed, right? How we start to, and I'm more of like objects relations therapist, attachment kind of feel. So I tend to will go back to childhood. Not every therapist is like that, for everyone who's listening. It's just how I view things sometimes, right? And so that schema is like, how is that developed in childhood of like who we are in the world, right? What is our value in our relationships? Like, what is my worth in here? What is my role in here? Like that's when you're starting to rebuild all these pieces of who you are. And then when you get to an adult, like there becomes that friction again of like, well, I checked all the boxes. Why am I still like so unhappy? Or why am I still running for something, right? Because we've been wanting to arrive in ourselves. We've been wanting to arrive at a place. And where we get older and we get kind of met with that, like, I should feel X, Y, and Z, or I should feel better, and I don't.
Yeah. And then we get into this like future casting, like, oh, well, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll be happy when I get married, or, you know, whatever the next goal is. And then we get there and we're disappointed because it's not what we sort of chalked it up to be in our minds. And so yeah, a lot of that's where sort of the whole idea of mindfulness and gratitude come in, that like life is now. It's happening now.
Yes. So I think that's an important, what I call them in my therapy work are like cues of like, that's one of the cues that you might be escaping something in the future when you start to future cast, right? When you start to take yourself out of the present moment and like, this thing is going to make me feel better. And it might for however long, but it's not that deep, like fulfillment piece. And so, and I'm wondering if that is probably that the next tip is mindfulness or gratitude, or how to get to the present moment, or was there something else? Because I think that's a great tip.
Yeah. Well, it kind of falls in line with that. So doing that within the context of imposter syndrome would be to, like, next time you accomplish something, relish in that feeling. Give yourself the time to actually enjoy what that experience feels like, and congratulate yourself and be proud of yourself, and, you know, feel all the good feelings that come with that, as opposed to like, okay, on to the next, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Which is so hard. I mean, I think, I feel like I'm a very forward thinker, and a lot of healing in my mind, in the way that I view therapy, is backwards thinking, you know, of like, what has happened, who am I, and then also where am I at today, right? And so, and even anxiety is like the future and not the present moment, or the past and not the present moment. And like, it's just interesting as we're talking, they're all related.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like anxiety, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, worth. Like, so it's just interesting with even the app trying to pull out a problem, right, that I think people can connect to, because sometimes people are just problem aware, like imposter syndrome is my problem. And I think when you get down to a lot of the issues, they all become like interconnected of anxiety or perfectionism. I mean, just in this topic, but something bigger about how we view ourselves and what our worth is and how we want to like show up in the world.
Yeah, I think they're more symptoms versus problems.
That's the word.
You know, yeah.
Yes. Chris is very clear. So you're like, yeah, girl, it's just a symptom. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's it. I'm like going on this diatribe of like, you know, blah, the past and the future. And you're like, yeah, the symptom. That's so good.
I appreciated it.
That's so good.
Expanding on that.
I love it. I love it. Do you know the Enneagram? Are you aware of the Enneagram?
You know, I'm somewhat familiar. I've never done it.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'd be curious.
I'd love to learn more about it. Is that something that you're into?
Yes, I actually have an Enneagram coach. Shout out to Erin, living the Enneagram on Instagram. She's great. She's been doing coaching for like 15 years. So she's like knows her shit, which is great. She's not like just some random coach that got certified. But
what did you say her handle was on Instagram?
Living the Enneagram.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
I can also send it to you.
Thank you.
Yes, but I think it's like, it's just so interesting too, because like we are both therapists, but we also are different people and approach things differently. And this is what makes up the beautiful world of therapy, that we're all so unique, right? And we all connect on a different level and different plane, and yet we're all the same. Like we're all, sorry, this is my existential piece of like, I just want us to all like take care of each other, you know, because we're all the same at the end of the day. So yes. Well, Kristen, anything else on imposter syndrome that you would love us to know about?
You know, obviously the course on the app is more comprehensive. So check that out if it's something that, you know, you've experienced. And
yes. And the course is it's broken up into 3 different videos. So the first one is, what is the problem? So what is imposter syndrome? And then the second video is why does it show up? And then the third video is how we get through it. And you'd lead some really, really beautiful exercises around that will get to that core piece of worth. So thank you so much for being a part of the app and being a part of this community.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. So thank you for, you know, hosting all of this. And I know it's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Okay, Kristen, where can people find you and what are you doing next? Like, tell us all the exciting things. Instagram, YouTube, courses. Let us know what you're doing.
My website is catharticspacecounseling.com. That's the name of my practice. And then most of my social media handles are the same. So Instagram and Facebook are Cathartic Space Counseling. I do have a YouTube channel called The Anxiety Therapist. So I do share a lot of tips and psychoeducation and all things anxiety related. I have a workbook that is, it's for high functioning anxiety, and it's practical exercises for perfectionists, people pleasers, high achievers. So there are like 8 exercises in there that focus on sort of unhelpful thinking patterns, boundaries, procrastination, self-criticism and self-compassion, mindfulness, things like that. So that will be available on my website. And then I'm in a mastermind group right now working on an online course that will also kind of cover similar topics. So high functioning anxiety, perfectionism, maybe throw some imposter syndrome stuff in there. And so I'm not sure exactly when that will be released, but I'm hoping to really dive in this summer and put some work into that.
Awesome. So. Love it. And are you currently accepting clients right now?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention I have a freebie if people want to.
Yes. We love freebies.
Download that. You know, you can find it on my website or on social media, and it's basically how to get through some anxiety thinking traps. So again, focusing on those like unhelpful thinking patterns and some of the most common ones that I see with my clients, and just how to reframe some of those things. So that's free, and you can find that on my website or my Linktree and Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah. And you are currently accepting new clients. Are they only in those states, or do you do coaching?
I do executive coaching as well. And then if they're more interested in the therapy piece, then they would need to live in Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, or Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick question. How did you get licensed in all those states? Did you live there?
No. So I'm in Chicago. I had 2 long-term clients move to Wisconsin and Michigan, and they're like right next door. Right. So we can be across the border in like an hour. So I wanted to keep working with them. So I got licensed there. And then I had learned that you can be an approved telehealth provider in Florida, which was, resulting from the pandemic. So that's how that happened.
Wow. That's really cool. I mean, that's a lot of dedication too, to those clients.
Yeah. I mean, you have to keep up for the licenses in Michigan and Wisconsin. They have sort of their own continuing education requirements. Yeah. But the funny thing is a client I used to have here in Chicago moved to Miami, saw on my Instagram that I was now seeing clients in Florida, she had a hard time finding a therapist there. And so she reached out and she's like, can we start working together again? And so I've been seeing her for a while.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's full circle.
Right?
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for being on the How We Get Through podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, if you want to get in touch with Kristen, all of her Instagram handles and socials will be in the show notes, so you can make sure you check that out. And and that's it. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jen. This is great.
Okay, bye. Thank you for listening to our show. We hope we've given you a few ways to move through criticism and into self-compassion. If you need additional support, check out Kristen's course, Imposter Syndrome, on the How We Get Through app, which is available for both Android and iPhone. Check out next week's episode with Dr. Emily King as she helps us support our neurodivergent kids. We'll see you then.